Welcome to WP Coffee Talk. Thank you to our sponsor, Helix Managed WordPress Hosting, for both their sponsorship and hosting our site, WPCoffeeTalk.com. Now on to our episode. Welcome everybody to WP Coffee Talk. I love the fact that I get to do this and have a lot of fun talking to old friends. Chris and I have known each other for quite a while now here in the Rochester community. And sometimes I'm talking to people I've never met before all over the world. Just last Saturday, Chris, I talked to 4 people in 4 different countries. The US, the US, Germany, Pakistan, and India. Bing, 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 bing. 4 interviews in a row, and it was phenomenal.
In English?
Thank goodness, yes, because I don't speak any of those other languages. I can say maybe hello in 1 or 2 of them, but that's about it. So yeah,
that could be a cool project moving forward, is learning how to say hello in all those different languages.
Well, I should have thought of that before I launched this whole thing, because that would be a good thing. If I talk to somebody in French, I'm covered. Spanish, I think I know that one, so we're good. But anyway, but this isn't about me. This is about you and introducing people to you. So this is my friend, Chris Clemens, and Chris is here in Rochester with me. And so we've known each other, I want to say, at least 6 years now through the WordPress community.
Yeah, it's probably, 6, 7, somewhere in there.
Something like that, yeah, for sure. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell everybody what it is that you do, who you are.
I am Chris Clemens, born and raised in Rochester. I run a blog/website called Exploring Upstate, and that is essentially a chronicle of me discovering things in upstate New York that I find to be intriguing. So a lot of times that's history, a lot of times that's a destination like a tourist spot, sometimes it might be food, sometimes it just might be an interesting story that I've discovered. Basically, anything qualifies as long as I find it interesting and it's in upstate New York.
There you go. And you do have a full-time job other than your blog?
I do, but the blog is like a full-time job. It just doesn't really pay. It doesn't pay like one, but it amasses to that many hours. My full-time, bill-paying job is that I'm the operations manager for the National Braille Association, which is located here in Rochester. We've been around, next year will be 75 years. We're a membership-based educational organization that provides continuing education, professional development support to Braille transcribers and teachers of the visually impaired.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, a little off topic here for just a second. Have you heard of the app Be My Eyes?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
I'm a volunteer on Be My Eyes, and
that's awesome.
There's like 4 times as many volunteers as there are blind people signed up on the app.
I didn't realize that was the ratio. I know that it's helped a whole bunch of people, and a lot of technology has helped. I guess we've already gone off topic. For people who don't realize, it's a mobile app where someone who is blind or has low vision can sign in and basically ask for someone else who's sighted to be using the app to be their eyes. So if you've got some sort of currency or a bill and you're not exactly sure what it was, you can bring this app up, and the app has access to your camera, and the person on the other end, who might be Michelle, could say, hey, that's a $20 bill.
Right. And that's funny that you bring that up, because that was the very first thing I ever did, was help somebody sort their money. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've also read pill containers to people so they know which one was which. I've helped sort mail for somebody. And then I had about a half an hour conversation recently with a man who I think was lonely, because all he wanted to do was make sure his microphone worked. But you don't get a ton of calls, because like I said, there are so many more volunteers. So I was actually in the car one day, and I got a call, and I pulled over, put my blinkers on to answer it, because I was like, yes, I get to help somebody today. So that's fun. And you get to help people all the time because of your association with that organization, which is very cool. So I just saw your mug. So show us again. Show me your mug, because I always ask everybody, show us your mug.
You don't mean this mug.
I mean both of them. So your mug doesn't have a design on it. So tell us there's a story, though. You said it has a story.
It doesn't. So like I said, one of the things that I do with Exploring Upstate is I really love our history and our culture, our heritage, in whatever geographical region that I've determined to be upstate. But so I will try to make the story short, but back in World War II, the Navy had all kinds of trouble with their eating ware, particularly their coffee mugs, because when the ships would swell, the tables would tip and things would slide off, and they ended up having a lot of problems with things breaking. So they put out this bid, and they said, hey, we need someone to make us a really durable like coffee mug and a bowl. And this company, Victor Insulators, which is in Victor, New York in Ontario County, not too far from Rochester, they said, hey, we're already using all these ceramic materials to make insulators for like telephone poles and stuff like that. You'll see them around. So we could probably make something. So they came up with the classic American diner style coffee mug, but it didn't exist then. It was just really for the military. And because it worked so well, then diners started using it, and diners really made it, I think, a strong part of American culture. It's sort of an icon now. But this is one of the originals. They don't make them anymore. They stopped in the 80s. There's tons of knockoffs that you can still get now that look like this, but this is one of the originals. So,
that's a piece of Americana right there.
Totally, yeah.
And
so,
what's in your mug today?
That's
one of the bowls?
Two of the bowls that they made. Those are a lot harder to find. So yeah. So that's
Did you unearth that one somewhere? Was it a gift? Did you find a way to buy it?
I don't. So to be honest, I've probably got like 15 or 20. So like over time, like I've really found, whenever I find one, I snag it immediately.
Gotcha.
And they make for really good gifts for people. I've sold some on my website. So I don't know where I got this exact one, but it was purchased somewhere.
I have one that's not an original, of course, but I have a diner mug that somebody gifted to me once. They really keep your coffee hot for quite a while too.
Totally. Yeah.
So the insulator name means something.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's the same material that was used to, well, actually, I think I've got
an insulator.
I knew I wouldn't have to go far. Yeah, so it's the same materials that were used to make like these insulators that would keep electrical cables from frying things. So yeah, they do their job. And I can't turn it over to show you because I'd be wearing the contents, but that bottom ring on the bottom is unfinished, and that was done on purpose to provide some friction so that it wouldn't slide.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So there's no glaze on that bottom.
Exactly.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And what's in your cup tonight?
Ginger chamomile tea.
Oh, that sounds like you'll be able to sleep well with that, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. Winding down.
That's good. Well, I do a lot of these at night, and I can't just keep drinking cup after cup of coffee, or I would never sleep. Tonight I have my WordCamp Montreal from their 10th anniversary. This is my speaker gift. I was speaking at WordCamp Montreal last year, and I'm drinking cold water right now.
Nice.
So I've hit the max on the caffeine for the day.
Water's a good thing.
Water's a very good thing. Got to stay hydrated. I talk a lot during the day, So tell me, how did you get started using WordPress? Why WordPress?
So when I first started blogging under a different name, and I think that's probably when you and I first met, I wanted an opportunity to just give it a try. And I used WordPress.com at the time. And I didn't use a branded URL or anything. It was, at the time, the name of the blog was Exploring the Burned Over District.
I remember that.
Yeah. So the URL was exploringtheburnedoverddistrict.wordpress.com. And everyone would say, what's your blog's name? And I'd tell them, and like no one could ever remember, which I don't blame them. But I never really knew that the blog would turn into what it has turned in today. It was an opportunity for me to try something with kind of no investment. You know, it was free. I signed up. I chose a theme. I sort of threw some stuff in this corner and tried it. And the blog sort of took off more than myself and my buddy that I did it with thought it was going to. And then we started getting to places where we're like, hey, it would be really cool if we could do this with our theme. And you couldn't because it was a .com. So I went to, this might answer one of your other questions. I went to a mutual friend of ours, Dave Horan, who was leading, at that time, was leading the local Rochester WordPress users group with Rob Marriage. Yeah. And I went to Dave, who was a buddy of mine, and I said, hey man, like, I want to actually have like a hosted blog at this point, and I'd like to port everything over. And would you please build it for me and just tell me how much it's going to cost? And he said, no.
He said, build it yourself, didn't he?
That's exactly what he said. And honestly, to this day, I love that he did that, because at that time I was ready to take a bunch of money and give it to him. And he knew that I was capable of doing it if I tried. And what he said was, you need to start here, you need to start here, then you need to go here, then you need to do this. And if you get stuck at any of those points, let me know and I'll help you. And it was so awesome. So I mean, it was awesome because it was a great process for me to learn. But it was learning with someone who I like sort of had some backup if I got stuck. And I did get stuck plenty.
You were working with a net.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. So then I moved over into WordPress.org, and I bought hosting and figured out how that worked. And so that's how I got started in the transition there in the beginning.
I love it. I think one of the first blog posts I saw of yours and that we had talked about, I want to say there were 2 or 3 of them that I had pulled up that day when I was looking at your blog. And this is, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. One of them was about the shoe tree.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah, so one of
probably the one in Lindenville.
Yes,
yeah,
that was the one about the shoe tree.
Yeah, so for people who don't know where Lindenville is, that's Western New York. And Lindenville is north up towards Lake Ontario. So before like you get to Lockport. And there's 4 trees there in the 80s. It depends who you talk to. The story, the lore behind that story is up in the air. Generally, people have agreed that sometime in the late 70s or 80s, people started throwing their shoes up in these 4 trees that are in this middle of this little intersection in a very rural part of town. And now there's thousands of shoes up in these trees.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I think one of the other ones was the street where you roll backwards or something.
Oh, yeah. So I never wrote about that, but I've definitely
we talked about it then.
Yeah. My friend Meredith Marsh, she at the time was doing a blog. Oh, I'm gonna feel really bad. In the Finger Lakes. What? Yes, I think it was in the Finger Lake. I hope she doesn't watch. If she does watch this, I hope she skips this segment. An incredibly successful blog called VidPro Mom, where she helps people with tutorials on how to create videos, like using GoPro. And that was one of her first GoPro videos, actually. That was in Middlesex, which is not too far from Canandaigua. And it's one of those places where you park your car and you put it in neutral, and you feel as though you're rolling uphill, even though your car is technically not moving.
Yeah, that's really strange.
So, yeah.
But my favorite post is the one with the upside down traffic light.
Tipperary Hill in Syracuse.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I asked you why, and you know the answer.
Of why it happened?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they put in this. For those who are watching outside of New York, one of the biggest geographical icons of New York is the Erie Canal. And much of the Erie Canal was built by Irish immigrants. Not all of it, but they played a big role in a lot of the hours that went into actually digging. And when the Erie Canal was finished and opened in 1825, those folks settled, and they all kind of settled in Syracuse. And Tipperary Hill was a neighborhood where many of them settled together. And Tipperary Hill is, I think it's the name of a county back in Ireland. So when they put in that stoplight at that intersection, red obviously was at the top, and yellow and green. And the Irish were not too pleased with the idea that a British representative color was above the green. So they kept knocking it out with rocks, and they'd throw rocks and they'd break the light, and they'd fix it, and they'd throw rocks and they'd break it again. So finally an alderman in 20 or something, said, like, what if we switch it and put the green on top? And they did. And they, sure enough, they stopped breaking it.
It's still that way today, correct?
What's that?
It's still that way today, upside down?
It is. So sometime in the last decade, some sort of government bureau somewhere said, hey, you know what? Maybe it's time to switch this back. And people freaked out.
I believe it.
So they said, all right, fine, we won't touch it. To my knowledge, and all of the other people's knowledge that I've touched base with on the topic, it's the only one in the world that's like that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's just a taste of what you've got in your blog. I mean, how many posts do you have? If you don't know exactly, like give a guess.
I don't know, 230, 240.
Yeah. There. You could spend quite a long time just reading about all these amazing things that you have discovered in exploring upstate.
Yeah.
Do you take recommendations if somebody says, oh my gosh, you got to go see this or you got to go explore that?
I totally do. But it depends. I mean, I think it depends on a bunch of things. Like, one, if it's something that I'm really like personally interested in, or just plain not interested in. If it's, I get a lot of people, especially like really tiny, small museums, who are saying, please come visit us, please write about us. I would love to be in a position where I could do this as my full-time job and always be everywhere and always help everyone. The reality is it's a ton of work.
Yeah.
And it can be exhausting. And I hate to put it this way, but I know that the people who will be watching this are folks who are understanding of this perspective about digital content creation. But if I'm going to drive 2 hours and go visit a place, spend time, and then write about it in photos and edit it, and 50 people are going to read it, like it doesn't help them if I can't generate an audience for that. So I sort of balance what I know will do well and what I'm really interested in. And I try to do a little bit of everything, because you can't just write about the popular stuff, right? Because people want to know about the other stuff. There's a lot of stuff that isn't popular just because people don't know about it. Right. So. Yeah,
that's a nice little balancing act you got. I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Depends on the day how it works.
True. Now, I know that you are not a professional web developer. So like I've had some people on here who build plugins and themes and, build hundreds of websites for people. That's not your goal. That's not your bailiwick, so to speak.
No. Yeah.
I love the word bailiwick.
Yeah.
But you've also seen hundreds of websites in your day, right? So we've all seen lots of websites. What's something you think that people don't focus enough attention on when they build their website? So, for me, it's the favicon. I know that's silly. It's 16 by 16 pixels. But if you don't have a favicon at the top of your website page, I'm disappointed that you've missed the opportunity for prime marketing.
That's really funny you say that, because I wouldn't have chosen that as my answer, but I agree 100%. And actually, we had, I need to make a story as anonymous as possible, but someone built me a website for something not related to exploring upstate. And it was for a group of people. And there was no favicon up there. And I said, hey, why isn't the favicon in place? And the person had a look on their face like, why do you care about that? Like, I just spent all this time building this website. Like, why do you care about that? And I think part of it was, I had it open in a tab and I started from the top down.
Right.
And that was like the very first thing that I'm like, wait. But I agree completely. If I have 10 tabs open in my browser, I don't want one of them to just be this weird gray blank nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway. I think one thing that's super, super important, but I recognize why not everyone thinks it's important, is accessibility. Mm-hmm. It's a tremendous amount of work. It's a tremendous amount of work to not just implement that functionality, but it's also a tremendous amount of work to understand what accessibility really means. And I recognize that it's nearly impossible to make a website 100% accessible for all disabilities in existence. There's so many individual variables that go into how someone experiences things that it's impossible to make an effort to appease everyone. But I think there's a lot of people who think, hey, I can save money by building a website on Squarespace myself and go in and just bang on a bunch of stuff and say it's published and it didn't cost me much money. But there are a lot of people out there who may have a really terrible experience using your website because it wasn't, it doesn't feature a lot of the custom functions that a website should or could. So I think that's important. And again, I recognize that that's not going to affect a wide audience of people. So the stuff that I think is probably more common is probably SEO. But I'm glad that a lot of people don't focus on it.
But I'll tell you what, accessibility is important for SEO now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if Google sees that you're not making an effort to be accessible, they're not going to be pleased about your site being at the top.
And it does take a lot of effort to be accessible, but it takes less effort to design with accessibility in mind than to go back and retrofit your site.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. So I think that I would have been disappointed had that not been your answer, by the way. So, you nailed it. You nailed it. What's something that you wish you'd known when you started building in WordPress that you know now? Something that might have made your job a little bit easier over the years.
I think SEO. But the problem with that answer is that it keeps changing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so like I would say that I wish that I knew more about it 6 years ago, but I think if I knew everything that people were concentrating on 6 years ago, I'd still need to like relearn it now.
Yeah, but so do we all.
Yeah, but I think that the concept of how a website is designed and developed to be more optimized for a search engine, I don't think is something that I felt was that important back then.
Now you've been to meetups. Have you ever been to a WordCamp?
Never been to a WordCamp.
Okay. But you've been to meetups before.
Yeah, totally.
What's something that stands out as something that was a stellar moment for you, like an aha or a way cool type moment at a meetup, something that you learned that just kind of blew you away, or a person that talked or whatever?
Person that talked. I'm thinking it's probably more along the lines of someone who talked. And at the same time, it was probably someone who made me think, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I thought I did. And after just hearing this guy talk, and I think it was, in fact, it was probably even a speaker that you had brought in to talk about AdWords and that kind of stuff. And I feel terrible that I don't remember. But yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah. And I could see him standing up there. And unfortunately, his mind works like so on another level that I sat there thinking, I don't belong here. I don't belong in this business. I shouldn't even be allowed to have a website because
I was running the meetup and I was thinking the same thing.
yeah, it's overwhelming. But I mean, you asked for like a wow moment. The wow moment was a lot of this is something that anybody can do if you've taken the time to really sit down and learn it. If you want to be a great web developer or have the best optimized website, you don't have to go and get a 4-year degree. You can sit down and really dig into materials that are available to everyone and a support network that's available.
Absolutely. And our meetups are just like that. I think it's amazing how much people will just like help you. They're not charging you. They're not, asking for any kind of like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, you have a problem here, let me help you.
Yeah. It was very much a community feel.
Absolutely. Ready for my rapid fire questions?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to answer rapidly. You can take the time you need.
Good.
To
Your
answer.
questions can be rapid and my answers can be slow.
Exactly.
All right, cool.
Okay, so what are 2 or 3 must-have plugins? So if you were going to tell somebody else, how to build a website, what are a couple plugins that you find essential?
I might be changing my mind on this answer.
Okay.
I've always felt that Yoast was, I mean, I keep bringing up SEO, and I think part of that is because that's one of the things that I'm focused on this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at the forefront of my mind. But Yoast has always been one that I've found to be helpful. But the more that I try to dig in and learn more and more about the topic, the more I'm finding that maybe Yoast isn't the best one out there. But I think for beginners who don't know anything about SEO or optimizing their site for search engine rank, I think it would probably be a great way to start.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a couple other free ones out there that people are starting to recommend, like
All-in-one SEO.
All-in-one SEO. There's one other one that now I can't think of. SEO Rank, is that one?
Could be.
But anyway, another one that, again, like I knew that the speed of a website was important and your load times were important, but I never really understood the technical aspects of everything that went into it. And I knew that it was important to, not upload a photo that's 4,000 pixels, because no website's ever going to be able to display 4,000 pixels anyway, so it doesn't matter. And it's just more information that your website needs to load. So I knew stuff like that, but WP Super Cache is one that I've implemented on a couple sites that I've built. That's allowed me to try to help increase my my speed load times. That one's been helpful.
Great. That's awesome. Any others?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine. Have you had a mentor? I know you mentioned somebody earlier, and I'm guessing that's the answer to this question. But have you had a mentor with WordPress? And how did that work, and who was it?
Yeah, I think I would probably put Dave Horan in that role, whether he likes that answer or not. And we really, he's probably not in that role anymore. We keep in touch. I actually just saw him this week. So we still keep in touch, but we're not in the same mentor-mentee role that we once were. I mean, back when I was first getting started, he was leading the WordPress user groups. So I was seeing him like once a month, and I was emailing him. We were talking, we were getting coffee and lunch, and he was really, really helpful in getting me started. But I think after that, I've sort of maybe been grasping at straws wherever I can. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who is someone, and you have to think of somebody different than Dave this time, but who's somebody in the WordPress community that you admire, and why? We know you admire Dave.
I do. This is going to sound like I'm kissing up, but I admire you. Because I remember like when Dave started saying like, I'm really struggling with the idea of doing this users group all the time, and you like jumped in, and Emily
Carpenter.
Emily Carpenter was a big part of sort of the next phase of that user group. And then from there, watching you sort of from the sidelines, starting to do stuff with WordCamp, and starting to do presentations and teach classes and take on people that you were teaching, and then like going to WordCamps in other states and then in Canada. And I'm like, oh my God, like one, I don't know how you find the energy to do all that, but you like, sort of like I said, like you don't necessarily, and I don't know if you did go to college for development, but regardless, you basically said, I'm jumping in and I'm going to do this. And you have. It's been impressive. So
I went to college for religion and philosophy.
Oh, that is interesting. You should start like a WordPress religion.
I think we have the flying spaghetti monster already that kind of fills that.
I do.
I have an MBA too, but I went to my undergrad's in religion and philosophy. So,
cool.
And I know you're one of your former blogs, I don't know if you're still blogging there, was about the religious part of New York State or something too. So.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, I mentioned earlier when we first started talking, Exploring the Burned Over District was the name of that blog, and that was specific to religious stuff.
Right.
All that, some of that content is now on Exploring Upstate. It's just in the Wayback Archives.
There you go.
So now it's just turned into anything upstate.
Yeah. So we could meet for coffee someday and talk about our religious experiences. There you go. What's something in WordPress that you'd like to learn but you haven't tackled yet?
I've never really messed much with CSS stuff. It's always worried me that I'm going to break something and I'm not going to be able to fix it. I've done it. There have been times when I've really, really wanted to do something in a theme, and the theme developer is like, yeah, there's only one way to do it, and here's the code. And I've done it, but I don't love it. So I think probably what I would really want to do is get more comfortable doing that kind of stuff, hard coding stuff into my theme. I get really nervous if there's too many plugins installed on a site. And I've mentioned, Exploring Upstate, but I do manage a couple other WordPress sites. So I've got a few. I mentioned the National Braille Association. That's a WordPress site that I do all the management stuff on that, and support whenever we might need it. So being able to implement some of that stuff on other sites would definitely be nice.
Cool. Yeah, CSS is fun. It's like a little puzzle, trying to figure out exactly how to change that color or whatever. I know you and I have different idea of what fun is.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
What's one of the, I'm looking over at my questions because we're having such a good conversation. I can't remember what comes next. What's one of the biggest WordPress mistakes you've made, and what did you learn from it?
I don't understand what's wrong with me, but for some reason, I still, in the year 2019, have not learned the lesson of how important it is to back up.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like 15 years ago, I had like an external hard drive crash with music on it, and I had to like rebuild that collection. Like you'd think that I would learn the lesson, but for some reason, I just have this faith that everything will always work, and I don't need to do backups, and that's wrong. I was hacked last month.
Oh man.
And the site was completely, like, you couldn't get to the URL, you couldn't get to the site.
Oh my.
So a friend of mine, Sean McKay here in Rochester, who owns Site Hub, he's done great work helping me out with stuff on my site that I haven't been able to do. And bless him, he, within minutes of me contacting him, started working. It took a few days, but we got it back. But I did lose just a very little bit because I hadn't backed up correctly. So,
you can automate that, just saying.
Yeah, it's not even, well, like, so my host does automatic backups on stuff, but the host will do, this better than I do, they'll do it like once a week or something. So if you've done anything in between that, it's potentially lost. So yeah, and it's not even like learning technically how to do it. It's learning why it's important and stop having faith that everything is going to work.
There you go. I would agree that that's a lesson to learn. Absolutely. What's your proudest WordPress moment?
Proudest WordPress moment. It's got to have been something that I didn't think that I could do on the site, but somehow built it in. But I can't think of what that is off the top of my head. Setting up WooCommerce was not easy.
I was just going to say, I noticed earlier today that you've got a e-commerce store on your site. So
yeah,
that's never easy, especially with shipping charges.
The shipping was such a pain. And to be honest, so I had shipping set up for maybe a couple years, and it sort of worked every once in a while. And I still don't know why. Something would happen where someone would get charged way too much for shipping. And finally, what I decided to do was the easy way out, and I just removed all shipping and made it free. So you can ship anywhere in the United States. So,
that's an easy way to fix it.
I solved that problem.
There's more than one way to skin a cat, is what I always heard.
That's right. I might be the cat getting skinned in that scenario, but
Raise all
It
your
works.
prices, they'll cover it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it works way easier. But yeah, every once in a while, you know, there'll be something where I'll think like it would be so awesome if I could do this. Like I always wanted to have a page on my site where you could go that day and see like a this day in history, things that had happened in New York State that day. And it took me a really long time to figure out a way to implement it correctly. But I did through the use of a plugin, but optimizing that plugin and displaying it and making it happen the way that I wanted it to. It was fun. And like you said, CSS was a puzzle. Like that's kind of how this was. It was like a puzzle. And when it finally displayed correctly, I thought like, this is really cool.
The angel saying, yeah.
Yeah, I did something.
That is cool. I love when it like works exactly like you expect it to, and you're just like, yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Now the next thing.
That's right. If you weren't working in the fields that you work in now, what would be another career you might like to attempt?
I think something, I mean, I do a little bit of it now, but I think that I would probably pursue more fully career in communications or journalism. Using WordPress and having the website really is a means to allow me an outlet to tell the stories that I think are important and that I enjoy telling. Sometimes I wish that I could only tell the stories and not have to worry about the website management and the building and the AdWords and the social media and all the other stuff. Like I just want to write, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think I'd probably pursue that more fully.
What's something on your bucket list?
Bucket list. I should have been more prepared for these questions. There's the Mohawk Mountain House is down in the Catskills. It's just a few minutes north of New Paltz. I've always wanted to spend the night there.
Okay.
Like, and I realized that me saying like that I want to go spend the night in a hotel in the Catskills doesn't sound like a bucket list item. But look up a photo of the Mohawk Mountain House in I think it's technically in New Paltz, and it's like $700-800 a night.
Oh my.
But if you just look at a photo, it's like a Swiss Alps looking
Okay.
scenario. It's gorgeous.
That's cool.
So,
I'll have to look it up after we get offline. I'll take a peek.
someday I'll pony up a couple months of a mortgage payment and spend a night there.
There you go. Make it really big with your blog, and they'll send you comp tickets. That'd be awesome.
Maybe. Yeah,
Maybe.
they might be up for that.
I know nobody likes to work for exposure. I get that. Show us or tell us about one of your hidden talents.
Hidden talents. I play guitar, but I don't have one anywhere around.
Well, you can tell us about what you do with it. You don't have to show us.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I play guitar. I did cello in elementary school, and then in junior high I switched over and started guitar. But I've never played like in a band or anything. I've always just done it because it allows me to sort of decompress and release some stress once in a while.
It's important.
So yeah, every once in a while I put up stuff on Instagram occasionally, and people are like, "Man, why don't you play like in a band?" But it's just one more thing that.
Because I don't want another schedule. Thank you very much.
Exactly. I've already got stuff to do.
That's cool. Now, another question I didn't have on the list is, what are you shooting with? Because like I use Canon. There's always this Canon versus Nikon. What do you shoot with?
Neither.
What do you got? Don't tell me. Sony mirrorless?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you enjoy it?
I do. Yeah, I've got a Sony a6000. I always use my iPhone.
Oh, okay.
Always. Up until pretty recently. It might have been like last spring even. And I thought, you know what, maybe now is the next time, like maybe now is the time when I learn how to do the next step. Like every like few months, I think like, what's the next thing that will help move the exploring upstate world to the next level? And I thought maybe better photos is the next thing. So I bought a camera and it's overwhelming to really learn how to take good photos.
It is.
So I've done some YouTube tutorials. I did I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Udemy course.
So that's how I've heard it pronounced.
Yeah, okay. I did a course there on how to take photos. But it was funny, like I had the camera for 6 months and I was watching this YouTube video and he's like, to get into the flash, you use this button. And I'm like, oh my God, it has a flash? Like I had it for like 6 months and I'd never even like seen that button. So
that's funny.
a lot to learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard good things about that camera. I don't own one yet. I'm still shooting with my Canon, but yeah, it's good. But I noticed the picture of you on the About Me on your home page was like somebody took a picture of you with your camera, and I was like, gotta ask him what he's shooting with.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which photo that. Wait, is that the one we're hanging off?
Yeah. Yeah, where I could never sit there because I'd be afraid I was going to stumble right off the edge. But yeah.
Such a cool spot. That's down in Olean. That's Rock City Park for anyone who's watching. It's such a beautiful spot. Yeah, and that photo was taken with an iPhone. He just happened to be over there and like could see me and put the iPhone up, and it worked out good. So
it's a great shot for sure. So tell people, obviously, exploringupstate.com.
Yep. Tell
people what your Instagram, Twitter, whatever, how they can find you on social.
Yeah, the Instagram, Twitter, and the Twitter and the Instagram accounts for the blog are the same. It's just EXPLR Upstate.
Awesome.
Exploring Upstate was too many letters, so I had to.
Twitter always like makes you figure out a way to drop all your vowels.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to talk about before we've just got a couple minutes left?
No, I think you hit on all the points.
Excellent.
I'm very honored to be one of the guests in this new project that you've got going. So
thank you.
Out and chatting with me, especially knowing that I'm not technically a developer, but
that's not what Coffee Talk's about. Coffee Talk is about talking to people who use WordPress. And if every talk was a developer talk, that would get really boring really fast. No offense to my developer friends. But I'm trying to have a bigger spectrum of WordPress users. So this has been fascinating. And I've known you for years and I learned some more things about you today, and that's fantastic. So we will definitely have your social links in your blog post, in your video post that I'll put up there. This will be available on YouTube and on Spotify. So, and I'll let you know for sure when, I don't have the schedule in front of me, when you're going to be posted and published. Cool. But thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.